Huh. So Rust's string struct doesn't have a reverse method. Maybe I'll solve the problem in a different way then? Hello, and welcome to Senior Code Review Buddy. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to share some tips on how to learn a new programming language, or a new framework, or a new tool. In fact, I think these tips might just be useful for any type of learning you need to do in the future. I think effective learning is an important skill for developers because over the course of our careers, we will be learning a lot. The tech stack you are working with today probably won't be the same one you are working with in 10 years, or maybe even 2 years, or maybe even 6 months. Maybe the framework you're using today will be deprecated next year and you'll need to learn another one. Or the type of problems you're tackling at work are much easier to solve in another language. Or maybe you don't change anything, but the language and framework you work in evolve over time and eventually they just feel completely new. One of the few constants in this industry is that the technology is going to change. So being able to learn with it is very important. Most of the developers I've worked with know multiple programming languages, and they aren't concerned about picking up another one if there is a need for it. I don't know how many new things you should be learning a year. I think it'll vary from person to person and also year to year, but I do think every developer should be learning something new every year. Now, before going into what I think you should do, I want to start with what I don't think you should do. I don't think you should start by reading the entire language spec or framework manual for something you want to learn. I don't think that's going to be the most effective use of your time. That being said, I did work with someone who did approach learning a new language that way. When we needed to start working with a new language, they printed off the language spec and went through the document reading it. I have no idea how this approach worked for him, but it seemed to work for him. But I've never seen that work for anyone else, so I would advise you to avoid that path. So what are my tips? Well, I think they are pretty simple. First, do some quick research to find some high quality references for what you want to learn. Maybe a good website or a book or a good YouTube channel, but don't spend too much time here. We don't need the perfect resource, just a good or even decent one to start. We just want to have an initial decent resource for our initial questions. Second step, spend a bit of time reading a quick start guide or watching a start a YouTube video or reading the first chapter of the book if you bought one. Just get some initial context and quick understanding of things. Again, be careful. You don't want to spend too much time here. You basically just want to get like a high level understanding of the basics. Third step, pick a small project where you can use this new language or tool or framework. Anything that you think is a small project works here. It could be a personal project that you've been thinking of for a while, or a selection of leak code problems that you've been wanting to do for some reason. Anything that is relatively small and you're motivated to do seems like a good idea. You just want something that you'll be interested in doing while you're learning something new. By having this project that you are independently interested in doing, the project then isn't just about learning, there is another reason you're doing it. So it's 2 for the price of 1. Fourth and final step, just dive in and start working on that project. Start working with the code and start making mistakes. Just start trying to solve that project in any way you can think of to start. Now, you're going to have questions about how to do something, and you'll use your resources to answer those specific questions. You don't need to learn anything else. You just need to learn how to do that specific thing, like reverse a string in Rust. And you just keep learning whatever else you need to move the project forward. And maybe the way you'll complete this project is terrible, ugly, completely against the style of the language. That's fine. You've learned a lot about the language, which was more important than a clean project right now. And this high rate of errors or mistakes is why I recommend picking a smaller project. You'll make a lot of mistakes, but if it's a small project, they probably won't be enough to stop you from completing the project. If you do a larger project, the number of mistakes and issues they generate could overwhelm you and stop you from completing the project. But if you want to do a larger project, go for it. And that's all there is. Try and complete the project and take joy from the learning process. I recently started trying to learn Rust. I started by ordering a book on Rust, programming Rust. I personally love books, so I love getting books for reference material when I'm learning something new. Since I knew really nothing about Rust, like the syntax or anything, I read the first few chapters of the book as my quick start guide. And honestly, it was probably more reading than I should have done at the start. The book starts with a great tour of Rust, which ends with a basic program. And I should have moved on to my project at that point, as I had enough knowledge to get started. But I kept reading for a few more chapters, because I like reading. And I don't think that was the right choice, because I didn't have any Rust coding under my belt, so a lot of the content in those chapters was harder for me to grok because everything was still really abstract. There was no interactions with Rust that I could sort of connect to. I eventually put the book down and moved on to my project. I've been interested in the advent of code problems for a number of years now, but I've never done them before. So I decided I would do the 2023 version in Rust to help me learn Rust. And I started the first problem, and it was hard. Oh, yeah. After reading the problem statement, I knew how I wanted to solve the problem, and if I was working with Python, it would have been fairly quick and easy to do. But instead, I stood there and had to figure out how to convert what I wanted to do into Rust. And through trial and error, I was able to get something working, and it felt great. And when I completed the first two problems, my code looked absolutely terrible. But that's fine. I learned a lot. Not just how to write terrible Rust, but I was also already able to look at that code I'd written, and I already kind of had some ideas on how to do it better. And that's a key way we learn. We do stuff, we make mistakes, we learn from those mistakes, and we figure it out. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm having a blast. So what do you think about these tips? How do you best learn a new language or framework? Why not leave a comment below with your best tip to share it with the whole world? If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button below and subscribing. If you have any comments, code you'd like me to review, or ideas you'd like me to talk about, please leave a comment below or reach me at chris@seniorcodereviewbuddy.com. Thanks, and have a great day.